little girl, I had this imaginary friend. I think his name was Kyle. And despite being a very outgoing child, I didn't really have any friends. My dad attributed this to Kyle and told me to get rid of him. I did, but only because a girl my age moved in across the street. We became best friends like that. The problem was, she and I went to two different schools, and you see, at school, friends come and they go. And at that age, kids were trying out their new mouths, testing out their newfound ability to evoke an emotional response with words like stupid and idiot. The second grade was the first time anybody had ever tried to rip out my soul and replace it with a broken shard of "would you just grow up already?" I was crushed. But there was something else. I felt something deep inside my liver or my spleen. It wasn't until years later that I was able to put a name to this feeling. It was realization. I realized that maybe I should stop relying on my teachers, tutors, friends, family, parents, peers, and people in general to tell me who or what I'm supposed to be, because they tend to disappoint me as much as I disappoint them. I can count you on one hand the number of people who have told me they were proud of me and actually meant it. One, my father, who hasn't told me since the 4th grade when he realized that my sister would probably amount to so much more. 2, my mother, who I stopped believing when she stopped sounding convincing. 3, my teachers, but I think that's just their job. 4, my best friend who hasn't spoken to me in a year and a half. 5, my imaginary friends who tell me every single day because if they don't, then who else will? When I was in the 4th grade, they handed me a bottle of pills and said, "You've got ADHD, do you know what that means?" I said, "Yeah, it means I've got an imagination." They said, "No, it means you've got a mental disorder." I failed to see the difference. My dad told me that it's okay to talk to people who aren't really there when you're 5, but past age 7, it's called schizophrenia. My parents get me tested because it was too hard for them to believe that maybe I wasn't crazy, maybe I was just lonely, maybe I was tired of waiting for people who would never call back, people who would never text back, people who would never talk back, people who would never turn their backs and look at me when I was talking. I made the decision when I was very little to live in my dreams until my dreams could live here without the risk of being assaulted with a baseball bat. Because in reality, the boy I've had a crush on for like 3 years leans over to me and says, "You know, you should become a lesbian." Because despite performing plays with him about gods and witches and fairies, the scenario in which a boy might actually like me is just too ridiculous for him to believe. But in my dreams, I've saved the universe like 50,000 times. Your opinion means nothing to me when there's a supernova threatening to destroy the entire galaxy. You can call me what you want. Childish, immature, freak. I've heard them all. But you see, I've seen things that you couldn't imagine because I think somewhere along the way you forgot how to dream. Somewhere in the process of growing up you cut yourself short. To get older means to grow smaller. They told you when you were a kid to shoot for the moon, and even if you miss you'll land among the stars. But now you can't even reach the streetlights. Now, you work in a tiny windowless office, calling up the devil on your prepaid cell phones. You know what I do for a living? I tap out stories on the typewriter that I call my heart. I etch into trees the names of people who didn't exist until I created them. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not real. Isn't that what faith is? Isn't that why we go to bed each night, trusting that the sun will rise in the morning? Isn't that why we let ourselves sleep at night? Isn't that why we allow ourselves to dream? There's no such thing as maturity. Nobody ever really grows up. We just learn how to act in public. And in public, I'll be prim and proper in public. I'll be quiet, I promise. But in my head, I'm taming a dragon and singing Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody as loud as I can. You can join me if you want, but you're gonna have to pretend to be a kid again.